I've got more walking to do. I'm going to do another mile here. I did my workout today. I'm going to do another workout later on. There's a voice. It's a very deep and intricate, intimate connection that you have, where intimacy doesn't even do justice. It's when you are aligned with something that's beyond a cosmic force. It exists in you and around you. And like a good example is yesterday. I had a $315 phone bill. I had so many things up on for sale on Facebook Marketplace and wasn't getting anything. No offers, nothing. Kept lowering it. Nothing happened. Then my phone service was interrupted to the point where I thought that I had another week, but I wasn't able to make calls or receive calls. And that voice told me to be calm. It barely speaks to you at all, but it resonates in you when you are calm. And it's almost not a voice, but it's more of a voice than any voice, if you get my meaning. It doesn't vibrate your inner ear. It like vibrates somewhere, a chord inside of you, deep inside of you. And if you haven't had it, I apologize, because saying sorry is the only thing we can do. Do I think that anyone can access or has access to it? I know that in the gospel of truth, Jesus, I'd love to be able to say something beside Jesus or Yeshua, because I don't believe that then any of those names are the name of who I am referencing, but I am referencing the pure Son. And that voice I'm describing could only be seen or looked at from our perspective as a singular soul. It gets into Coptic and Gnostic traditions because that's what was discussed, where it was just known. And if you get into certain studies like animism, really what totems are based on, if you look at the Bali religion and the break off from Hinduism through the imperialist movement, we're talking 1,000 years ago, there was always an understanding of an animal soul, right? And people didn't regard themselves in a sense of that they were so removed from an animal, so superior to the animal, right? That they started to take on this, what could almost be seen as this invitation to an alien force, right? To say that the alien force is the disconnection first from the, there's so many words. It's beyond the metanoia that occurs, where there is a huge cataclysmic change in your life, right? It's, it could almost be seen more as a quickening, but it's what happens after that. When the dust settles, when the calm comes to you, when you remembered yourself, when you remembered a time, a place that was outside of time and space, because when you were an infant, when you were, pre-embryonic, when you were in sort of what's referred to as a prima materia state, pre-matter state of being, you just were, and you were connected. You were connected to Like to say something or say it doesn't matter, it's all references back to matter. And matter doesn't matter. So, hello, Yasmin, Salim, how are you today? Listen, like the whole point of this is listen for the voice. It's beyond reasoning, it's beyond intellect. And you can even get to the place where you can see something, a little symbol just floating there. When you get that intricacy and that delicacy, yeah, there are voices in your head. There's voices in all of our heads. But to say that that I'm somehow not mentally well, that my faculties aren't about, then you haven't watched my videos and you shouldn't even be commenting. Because what we do is we respect one another, right? To the point where we go into locution, if you know what that means, coitus of conversation. So I find that when people say sardonic, snide, glib, there's snark, have you ever heard that term? Statements, they're being defensive, right? I'm not being defensive. What I'm doing is finishing 2 miles. I just came out of doing 80 miles per week of walking. And it's what I call continuous training. And I discuss topics as I'm doing it that relate beyond to a non-liminal place and non-localized. But I study physics, I study a lot of different religions. I've been doing this for many years, trying to come down to facts that we're seeing with disclosure. I guess you're one of those people that's commenting that still thinks that the disclosure is somehow not related to reality, right? That David Grush, Lou Elizondo, being the glowies that they aren't having to come forward with something, because when you look at Robert Bigelow's work or Nathaniel Gillis's work, you'll see that there's conclusive proof that there are voices in your head. In fact, there's more than voices, there's intentions that exist through us to get us to do things that we normally wouldn't do. And it can be a very small, slight movement of sleeping in a little late one day, or not showing up for work on time, or getting too aggressive when we're driving, or drinking too much before we drive. But all those are done by way of a hypnotic auto-suggestion that's taking place in the on-running program that pervades outside of us in a social caste, right? Social system. It's happening in a codified way, right? Where we start to see these symbols and these reoccurring themes occur around us, but it leads to neuro-linguistic programming mechanism. And to stay, like when you say something about me, you're assuming the quantity, the size, or really the nervous system response to the innervation of information. But you're not looking at me as a fluid aspect or a part of information that wants to the information wants to travel through me to you, but then you're being defensive because you've been met with negativity. Through teachers, you're expressing your own negative impulses in your experience, right? So you have this, it's like a secondary plant metabolite. You have this defensive posture. I don't live that way. I don't live that way. Like the egoic expression to try and retain a concept of self, right? That's something I got over years ago. Years ago, I'm 54. But in that, I don't close up, I don't get tense, I don't get rigid. Like as I'm walking and exercising, post-workout, drinking water, right? Expressing myself. Are you just sitting on your ass, thinking snide things, doing sardonic things, right? And being a smartass? And where do you think that's going? What are you doing with your energy? My energy is directed all the time. It doesn't make me better. In fact, we come to this usually through failure in our lives, where we realize that we've plugged into the wrong mechanism and that it's not serving us or anyone else. And so the contingent programs have to take over. The cybernetic information network has to take over. So we need governing, we need governorship, we need someone to tell us what to do. I don't need anyone to tell me what to do. If you really want to understand this, look into the Republic, right? Plato's Republic. Look into the dialogue between Socrates and Gorgias and get yourself educated on philosophy. And it doesn't mean, oh, you're not educated. It's not a snide, highbrow remark. It's look at what interests you, what resonates with you, learn about it in your own time. You could read one sentence and walk away with more than theologians understand in a lifetime of looking at historicity and occurrences, you know. But I think of particular interest is like the area of study, Francis of Assisi, other people who have, you know, levitated, and Diane Pasulka does a really good job at breaking that down. But yeah, I'm getting things done. Getting things done. It may not look like I'm doing much, but what are you doing? Because I guarantee if you were doing anything, you wouldn't be sitting on your ass saying anything snide or snarky. There's no time, there's no inclination, there's no energy for that. So once you get into this mind state where it's like, it's not quid pro quo, like what I do for you and you do for me, that establishes a working relationship. We are in the end of that. Can you see that? We are in the end of meritocracy and transactional agreements, right? Those are all contracts. But when I say fuck it, I'm not adhering to that. The kakistocracy, the evil government, that it ends that day, that moment. And that's what's missing. So self-efficacy, autonomy, and a rise above liberty. Liberty is not a good thing. The Statue of Liberty represents something where you can be liberated from anything. You can liberate yourself. You are your own God. And then you realize really quickly that that's just not the case. Try it out. You're not old enough to know, but I hope that you don't meet those ends that so many people, including myself, got to, where you realize there's something way beyond metaphysical occurring here. And if I want to have a soul, like, you don't know that you have a soul until you lose it. When you lose it, you're going to value it, and you're going to want to gain it back. And getting something back that you lost, it's like Al Pacino any given Sunday. It's all in the inches. It's all in the minute details that you skip over. And it's so hard on the battlefield of life to get to a point where you're even in the arena where you're good enough, right? And so that's really what being a smartass comes down to, is that you're just not good enough and you feel rejected. I've been the best in my field. And at the height of my career, I started to want more and more. I was like worshipped by people, right? On every level, to the point where my head got so big that the hubris couldn't be contained. And then you're flattened out. You're shown that you're made of flesh and bone. What's going to happen when you get old? What's going to happen when this, when that? And all of those scenarios you will play through. So when you take too much, it's like a string. You pull that string down, it's shorter on the other side. You only have so much string. You only have so much life, man. So it might be funny today. It might be funny to yourself, but you feel like shit about yourself. And I don't, because I don't take on that anymore. I do feel like shit in the sense of we're all going through the same sort of depression. They call it the dark night of the soul. Me walking in this room is not about depression, though. I do indoor walking. I keep the light low. If you get into like Brian Johnson or other Huberman or any of those people that you see on YouTube, right? They do studies from the physiological sense with light, amygdala response, cortisol responses, things like that, to that nature. And you're better off staying in a room that's nicely ventilated and doing your exercise. So I'm doing a few miles of walking, just did my resistance training, and staying on carnivore and trying to get leaner. I've lost 80 pounds. If you want to check out my progress, you can look me up on Rogue Beast Warrior. I got to a point where I didn't care about something that I was good at because it was a corporeal, carnal pursuit. And I needed to get my mind off of that and focus expressly on what is this energy that we have that we might call a soul. And then even more so, the idea that I was talking about earlier in Gnosticism, Coptic Gnostic texts, where there's a shared soul. And the fact that if you're separate from me and you don't feel a unity, then and I am involved with a program that you could say, which is part of the Rosicrucian great work. Master Masons through history were involved with this. It's not the Masons that we know now. Like I say, it's been referred to as the great work, where people come together in this sort of mind meld where they don't need to see each other. They can be halfway around the world or anywhere in space. But there's there's an entanglement that occurs when people are what's referred to as mimetic chains. This is used in deep physical sciences with proteins, like 181 structural components of an amino acid chain that send out a signal to the pituitary, the hypothalamus, the HPTA, testicular axis, through the endocrine system. So there's an assumption of that growth hormone is already released, right? Because there's subfractions that are found there on a localized scale, right? At the cell body. So that's what growth hormone does, is invariably it gets into insulin growth factors and mechanofactors where the end byproduct is localized repair, right? And they've had the ability to repair with bacteriostatic solution. And then they attached, when I say they, who knows? Exactly the opposite of what these COVID vaccines have been doing to people. If you look up Dr. John Campbell, he'll show you the increased morbidity rates that are happening now, post. It's going to be all over the news in the coming months, and it's just a fact. There's over 100,000 more deaths that have occurred since 2014, just in the UK and broadly around the world. And what the insulin growth factors, the study of that and why it's important, is that there was a brief period where people who had incurred MCL, ACL damage, they could take the suspension throughout the day. It's produced naturally when our stomach lining rubs together and something called ghrelin is produced. And so growth hormone is the end result, right? So there was a moment where they hadn't attached what was called a long chain or an LR3 chain to make this a systemic. So in other words, if you take this suspension now, right, these mechanofactors, so the traditional terms are GHRP, Samoralin, right? So they wanted these things to be considered theoretical, but they absolutely are not. But they could be taken localized and you would see the repair occur in an area localized. So they attached this LR3 chain They didn't allow it to come out into the mass media. You can look it up, but it's going to take a lot of research. And there was a gentleman called, he went by Dat Be True, and he ended up getting, he was a con artist. Whether or not he was set up, he's from the UK, but what was alluded to is that he was actually selling PEDs that had nothing to do with these theoretical amino acid chains, you know, that would tap into these mechano growth factors. But the real reason, I believe, is because they're not something that you could do a test. There's no test strip on it. There's no a higher volume in your blood system. It's so localized that it goes to work right away. And so there's a lot of research and inventions that none of us are not only not familiar with, but it's not available for us that could have saved lives and could be saving lives right now, you know? But I started this out talking about the still small voice. And no, it's really not a voice in your head. And it's not a physical event. And those who have had miraculous involvement in their lives, which that's what you're getting at. That's what you're getting to when you are being defensive, when you are being smart ass or snarky, you're thinking that you're being funny and you just want to be liked by someone out there. But it's so pathetic because you'll never see those people, right, when they acknowledge you. But instead, trying to connect to this God force that is neither you, it definitely isn't you, that these are just bio bodysuits, and that was what you were supposed to do all along, is learn that, is to understand fundamentally that this isn't me. This is a bodysuit. Oh, sorry. Shout out Kenny. I am yapping. That's the type of criticism that I like, because I am yapping. I am ruminating. I'm walking. And who else? Mbe. Name a car for an edit. I don't know what that means. Name any car, Honda Prelude. Sorry, Yusuf, I'm in the hospital. I am so sorry, man. Emily, hi. Yasmin. My country, it's 2:16. Yeah, so somebody was saying voices in my head. I'm going to explain myself, like when I see somebody say something like that, I am going to explain myself, but I'm also not chasing you off. Like I say, that's something that's missing. There's a friend of mine that looked me up after many years, and he and another person would, I found out later that these kids were very neglected, but they were like considered bullies, right, in middle school. They were just these ruthless kids, and one of them, I found out later, was just trying to make it through. He was an alcoholic. I saw him many years later, and he hadn't grown since middle school. He literally looked exactly the same. So what you think now about your reality, about the people around you, about life, prepare for it, because it's not going to stay the same. The people that you know, the adults, the parents, society at large, it's not going to be the same in a year. People have been talking about this a lot, but I don't think the full exposure and understanding of what I'm talking about is hitting home. But the de-dollarization is the final nail in the coffin. It's been something they've talked about. You got cryptocurrency. I'm not worried. I'm not worried. China's been talking about this forever. China and Russia, but the difference now is that it's being instituted and it will spread out as a virus rapidly. And what's going to happen is that invariably the world, there's going to be an organization that may not even exist yet, that is beyond the UN, and it will call for an audit because it will have to know a sort of like when you get into fungibility and non-fungibility, there has to be an intrinsic value to the dollar that is not based on projections of a labor market, right? Especially when it's China and Russia that carries these big bills, these big orders, right? We owe you this much, but we're going to pay you this much. What the hell was that? Something was like moving in the right? And our dollar has zero value. It always has. In fact, it's an anti-value. In fact, it's using such guys as it's a black hole. It's not based on a Marxist labor's market. The way that it's set up through a socialized networking system is that communism has always been alive and well in government. The people that work for the government have the immunities. When you look at communism side by side, right? The people that work in the government who are elected officials, but the ones who work around that in Congress, the House committee, they live as communists. Socialists, people, poor people live in the socialist system where they have no money, they have nothing. That's really what scares people about the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, right? As the spokesman, the diabolical leader, is that he understands that like they have no respect for people. They don't even have to talk to people. They'll look at what you represent on paper and see, are you going, if a democracy is laid out in front of you, we the people, right, in the US, why aren't you exercising your powers? And then it gets into the fact of feudalism, that feudalism is alive and well also, but it has to do with a military government that is a republic. So you have all these different layers of political interest that are separate. They are separate. It's just like you have to be able to think about the Vatican and the Pope being the last representation of Rome. It never died. It never went anywhere. It's still alive and well. It's still very powerful. Every Catholic out there, every practicing Catholic is a member of Rome. It doesn't matter where they are a liaison in what country. The money goes back to Rome. No, I did have my whiskey water bottle moments. Am I yelling? I think I just put this other earbud in, and so I think that's why. What's Peter Puffer? I'll have to look that up later. See, I learn from the slights, from the put downs. I enjoy them. Actually, I think they're funny. But I'm still waiting for one that's actually funny. I'm looking for a Dennis Leary out there. Somebody who can just cut me up in a millisecond. So I'm completing my 3-mile walk. I just worked out in the other room. I'm doing carnivore. I just started taking in these snacks. I couldn't handle the food that I was eating yesterday. I had 2 Shack burgers. I'm doing the cheap ass Walmart carnivore. Carnivore works. I've dropped 80 pounds. They ran out of eggs, and I think that it's weird. That's animal fat right there that I saved to the side. I know it's gross, and it's a gross refrigerator. It's disgusting. Do a backflip. God, I wish I could do a backflip, man. Wouldn't it be cool? But I could just go, yo, I just did it. What'd you think? I'm going to get a 360 cam that makes old guys look better or worse, but worse is better, right? It's all entertainment. I'm looking to get a 360 Go that can clip on. There's also, I think it's called the 360 Ace, and it's like it can survive fire, and you can drop it. And so I'm looking to get some 360 cams. I want to do some 10Ks this year. I'm transitioning my other channel, Rogue Beast Warrior, into a very active station. I think that I could do a backflip. I would just need to work with somebody like that guy Magnus or someone. I'm very stiff, but I'm light enough to do it. But I don't have enough power generated through my legs. But that's something where physiologically I've worked with people on a professional scale. I've worked for Equinox Fitness, 24-hour fitness, Bally's, Club One. I've had my own businesses, the far distant past. Not making any claims. I'm old, but I've been into sports nutrition, nutritional and wellness counseling, Pilates instructing, kettlebells. I got fat as I was developing myself spiritually. I wanted to not give a flying fuck about any of that stuff, and I did that for almost a decade. But I didn't want to completely lose all my muscle mass, so I started playing with PEDs during that time and have an extensive experience with that. But what happened was I thought, I'm just going to start learning how to do PEDs on a practical scale. I didn't start doing them until I was like 41. And they didn't do what I thought they were going to do. And I thought, this is not efficacious. This is not principled to teach people how to use this. But I had worked with bodybuilders, people who were pro bodybuilders on circuit, professional athletes that did everything from dressage, like horseback riding, tennis. I worked around like the Stanford campus, not for Stanford University, but at a high-end fitness center there in Palo Alto. I used to eat lunch at Google and stuff like that. So I've been through more than one lifetime. I've been wealthy, considered kind of wealthy, to being extremely poor, living in a high-rise apartment, driving the Mercedes, homeless, sleeping. Like, to me, it's about learning about the soul, about the expression, right? So, and I've had more than one career. I've had a Class A license, Class B license, motorcycle license. I love to ride motorcycles, but it's been years. I'd like to be able to put that on this channel or one of my other channels. I used to do videos like that, where I would strap a flip video up to the back of my bike and tour around, stuff like that. I mean, we're talking like 12, 15 years ago. A lot of the things that they're doing now with, GoPros and stuff. But I erased those videos. They're no longer even in my video archive. I sacrificed them, if you will. Medical marijuana license by any chance? I did smoke for a long time. Please post the first attempts. Let's see. I will. I do want to do a backflip. Like, I'm not kidding you. I've always wanted to ride on skateboards. I'm 54 years old, but I don't really feel like age is a limiter when you get your body weight down and you are working with your strengths. Right? You ever seen the guy's strength side? I I really would like to get more into training myself and other people. Um, not like parkour type stuff, but through um, agility, quickness type training, but a lot more on the flexibility side. Um, Toes of the I love that name, by the way. Are you an Islander? The Toza has an Islander ring to it. Let's see your meat. Actually, that got me into trouble years ago because I used to do like I was one of the first people that did before and after videos, physical transformations. So I'd get down to literally under 5% body fat, like 28-inch waist at 6 feet tall type of stuff, right? And you do it in your underwear, but I would, and this is way TMI, I know, but you said that. I would do something where I would work my entire body, right? So I would use a device where this actual company is closed down now, but it was like that's something, and I'm only going to talk about this briefly because I don't go there, because it's, to me, life is not about the corporeal pursuits, right? It's not about the show. Like, I believe you got to show your metal, but at the same time, showing your meat, no. But when you see these bodybuilders on stage with, you know, let's not put people down, but let's just say they're, the entirety of their physiology isn't something they're working on, and it's strange to me. It's strange to me because it's so present in there, right? I'm not saying we should ever get to a place where we're having like nude competitions, because then it would go back to this sort of freak fest, um, where you saw the collapse of civilizations based around this hedonism, right? Like, it is a dangerous area, and we're going into that, right? It's like Ready Player One, but they only got into that a little bit. AI, they got into that a little bit, but the online gambling community, let's say, I don't know if you could say community, it's global. The people that they're taking down, like CZ with Binance, why they really take them down, the operations to keep Moldova and other institutional zones, jurisdictional zones that look like the poorest places on earth, but in fact have a huge amount of international money, going through as a hub. And then let's not forget about the sex trade, right? And so, coming down to that intrinsic, deep relationship that you have with your God force, and I know that sounds tacky and cliche. I'm not going in David Icke direction. I'm not going, toward a metaphysical direction, but I am saying once you're there and you find that purity and that peace, and it takes a lot more than just metanoia, like this cataclysmic change in your life, um, to get there. But saved by grace, that's something real, man. That's something real. But what I was saying is, there are certain methodologies with pumping that you can use that will actually keep an area engorged to the point where you do that for about an hour every single day. You're working a certain area, just like if you were working, just like if you were working your biceps or other things, you're working on that area in reference to PE. That's all we're going to say. But it's kind of like, if you're going to work your whole body, you want to work it like Vitruvian man. That's what I always thought, like work on every single, and something really happened with the advent of, the use of anabolic steroids, where there was just a total break off there. And we celebrate that, right? We celebrate that. But I really believe in the natural way, but who knows if that ever even existed. You get into, so I've been down in LA, my constituents in personal training. I remember being on Colorado Boulevard in Pasadena, telling somebody that I worked with who was Miss Venice Beach, we got to just put you out there and kind of exploit, your abilities, because you should be getting on to this multi-client, semi-personal training scale where you're training 5 to 10 people at a time. That was when YouTube, I mean, this is back in 2009 when YouTube really wasn't like this interface. Sure, as a personal trainer, you could make videos for your clients, which I did. They could take those videos on the road with them wherever they were and replay them. But there wasn't like this sort of application-based networking system, right? But in reference to marijuana, it's a gateway. Because I have done mental mind meditations that you could almost say border on occult practices. You could definitely say that. To where I wasn't reading certain books, I was doing certain things, expressions that brought books to me that were relevant. People would hand me the book, like the Master Key System. This very spiritual person down in Pasadena handed me that book. I've been handed other books. I've found books in the strangest ways, like this book on Zoroaster, or Zarathustra, as Nietzsche referred to Zoroaster, or young Sadi was his name. So, yeah. Yeah, I'm going to try. I'm going to try to do some backflips. That's a priority for me. But you'll see that I'm posting more training videos. I'm trying to work away from just aesthetic type training to where like you look a certain way to performance and functional training. So look out for some videos in the very near future, like the coming weeks, where I will have the resources to actually get some 360 cams. I'm excited. Like the selfie stick is self-canceling, so you can't even see the selfie stick on camera. And I will be getting the Go, the 360 Go, that will strap onto my shirt with the magnetics, right? And I'll be able to go into the gym. So everything that I do will be transitioning toward exercise in other places, right? Traveling, but doing 10Ks and things like that. I think it's important to be able to talk about important subjects while you move, and to be able to multitask, right? While you're in movement, right? To show what you're expressing, to not only have a concept or an idea that you talk about, but for people later to look at it and go, oh, he's doing it. Like, yeah, you stay in movement. You keep the notion suspended by exercising an application. And when you do it enough, if your goal is to look, to have abs or to get super lean, those things don't often come first. But if your fitness comes and your ability comes, to you, that's what the true goal is to create this flow, right? So once you have that flow established, all of a sudden, you're going to look at yourself in a passing glance and you'll see, oh shit, I have core, I have abs. I'm going through the process, right? And that's not something that you want to, get stuck in that state of mind where you're just looking at yourself in a mirror or recording yourself and going, oh, I look ripped here. Yeah, I've been in that state of mind, and it's very limiting. So I believe, even as a trainer years ago, I realized, it just dawned on me, it's got to be performance oriented. we have to you need to sign up even if you're just going to walk a 10K 10 weeks from now. There's a lot of good information on that through the Mayo Clinic. The Miracle Mile is an amazing one. Yeah, we drink got coffee. So I got this Swerve sweetener. It supposedly has, so I'm a little apprehensive about taking this, but I got it for baking, right? It has more alcohols. This one I've been using a lot, and it tastes just like sugar. And it's mainly allulose, but it's erythritol and monk fruit, right? Yeah. And then I'll take cinnamon it helps with your blood sugar. It's a natural agent that helps just regulate your blood sugar, and you will feel that if you do have issues, but it's not a homeopathic cure-all or a holistic cure-all. And so I'm going to call it a live, but I will be doing posts that are specifically centered around everything from religious studies to ufology, disclosure, fitness. Yeah, fitness while I'm doing that. Fitness progressions. Again, I was a very accomplished coach and trainer. I used to have over 25 certifications from ACE, AFA, NSCA. I still have 3 certifications through NASM. I've also got other certifications: personal trainer, advanced personal trainer, core conditioning specialist, kettlebells, TRX certifications, Pilates certifications. I was very much into fitness, nutritional certifications, and worked professionally, have had jobs that paid $200,000 a year. I'm not saying that I made the $200,000 a year, but I used to make 6 figures, which doesn't sound like anything now. This is going back 12 years ago. But it's like working 3 jobs. I worked 17 hours a day. I was living on nothing but like protein powder, supplements, and water. And there's a point where when you aspire for greatness, people become envious and jealous that you never thought would be envious and jealous, right? When they see you making the money, they see you looking good, you start to see the narcissists and the flying monkeys and the true agenda, and it happened. And what they do is, if you love anything, they'll attack that. So my son was exhibiting some issues through his mental cognitions. Let's say he's considered special needs, right? And he's going to be 28 this month, actually. But he was going through a very pivotal time. And instead of assisting me and helping me with him, people came in and attacked, and used government agencies to further their post, right? So I'm still waiting to see how karma works out, but I really do see the action of karma only when you are aligned in a purified sort of way, right? And vengeance isn't the overall goal, but it's just like what I was talking about, where you're not going for the abs, you're not going for the aesthetic look, you're going for the performance. But all of a sudden, when you align yourself with all those attributes, right, and you're doing the action, the performance-based action, suddenly that's no longer your goal. Your goal is much larger. So your goal should be much larger than trying to actively take people down. You're bigger than that. You're larger than that. You're more expansive than that. You're more connected than that. Don't limit yourself. So that's where we're going to end it. God bless you, whatever that means to you. Yeah, truth always. You don't make money. I don't make any money. Yeah. Let's be truth always. I love that. Truth always. And we're going to tell the truth. I'm broke as hell, but I'm happy. And I could go to work at any time. I've still got lots of certs and lots of ability, and could probably tap back into a client list. But at this point, I've got some serious issues going on, that I'm trying to remedy. I'm in my mid 50s, and I'm trying to work with myself and get myself dropping the 80 pounds, maybe 80 plus pounds at this point. That was huge, but I'm trying to get functional, and I'm trying to make my nutrition plan and my diet something functional as well. Something that I never felt good about, and my freezer and refrigerator is stacked with dead animals, and that's not good enough for me just to say, yeah, I'm a carnivore. I love dead animals. You know, um, I like watching like competitive eaters and stuff like that. And there's a guy, Joel Hansen, who I like. He's I haven't watched him in some months, but I really liked watching his competitive eating videos. And he wears shirts that just say, I like eating animals and all that. And it's like, that doesn't sit well with me, you know? Like, I'm not a bleeding heart where, I'm playing the violin every time I see an animal. And, you know, I understand that there's a lot of inequities going on, but I want to be able to do my part. And so I'm excited about the sciences that are coming out. And I think that we're capable of making something that tastes better than like in the Matrix, right? Better than an amino acid paste, right? You remember that scene? Better than just eating like flavorless sort of amino acids, right? But I think that once we uh, are attracted to those tastes, those flavors, where it's just healthy. So, I mean, that's typically what I do. Is I'll do really high protein nutrition. Um, that's been something that I did for many years, and there's even MIT research that goes way back that if you just add in, and you can go on Thomas DeLure's channel and find all this out. Like, why would I want to compete with that? That's why I don't try to do, uh, specifically focused on sports nutrition and nutritional sciences. It's like you already have a go-to person who's doing that on a really high scale. More power to them, right? But taking in full spectrum amino acids, that's when all 20 used to be referred to as 23 amino acids that your body cannot produce, right? That you need to get from food sources. That's what you want to look at. That's where something like this, for instance, this says protein, but then it says right afterwards in an asterisk, this is not a viable source of protein because all the amino acids are there. And more vegans and vegetarians need to understand that. And one of the main amino acids that you have to supplement with that you'll be low in is lysine, right? And L-lysine is something that if you quit smoking, right, it allows the mucus buildup to release. Sounds gross, sorry. To get all the gunk out of your system, right? But I will end this with who's it? Rhonda Patrick, and she's enthralled with omega 3s, and she comes out with research that shows these studies. And I'm not saying this 100%, but every time I see a video that she does on it and then citing the research, it's amazing. Is that even if you smoke and you're a smoker, you can almost completely mitigating the negative responses from smoking just by taking up in the upper limit every day of omega 3s. But you have to make sure that you're in balance with your 6 and 9 as well, right? So you might, like, this is cheap oil, but there's some extra virgin olive oil in there. Yeah, I'm poor, so. But what I would get is if I could afford it, I would get MCTs. I would get coconut oil, but I prioritize so that I can make it through the entire month by getting things, right? And I've got eggs on the way. So I'll be getting my omega-3 from eggs. And that's a great way. If you're doing carnivore, it's a great way to get in your omega-3s. You're getting, like with 5 eggs, you're pretty much doubling up on those omegas. So if you're doing carnivore, you're smoking, definitely try to eat 5 to 6 eggs every single day, right? All right. Peace be with you. God bless you. Oh, Tyler B. Oh, that's a trip. Hope you start healing, brother. Yeah, I'm going through healing. I appreciate you. God bless you. When you see people pass away, especially, online, these social networking systems, let's call them, a lot of times it can be a benefit to their soul, So even if you hear through the through the chain that I didn't get physically better, that I didn't get physically well, that spiritually, that's all that matters, and you can take that for what you want. All right. So God bless you all, and we'll talk to you soon.